All right, let's dive into one of ancient India's most fascinating texts, the Yajurveda. Now, this is a story, a journey that starts with the very practical, physical act of ritual and, believe it or not, ends with some of the biggest questions humanity has ever asked. It sounds a little crazy, right? Can a book that's basically how to guide for rituals actually hold the secrets of the universe? Well, that's the mystery we're going to unravel today. How do you get from a manual for sacrifice to a guide for ultimate reality? Let's find out. So to really get a handle on the Yajurveda, you have to start where it starts, with action. I mean, at first glance, its entire purpose seems incredibly down-to-earth and practical. The name itself is our first big clue. Yajurveda comes from the root yaj, which means to worship, to honor, or most importantly, to sacrifice. This is the Veda made up of Yajus. These are the specific prose mantras that were chanted during a ritual ceremony. And you gotta understand who this book was really for. This wasn't something the average person would just pick up and read. No, this was the technical handbook, this specific manual for the Adhvaryu priest. Think of him as the master of ceremonies. He was the one physically doing everything, from choosing the secret ground to pouring offerings into the fire. This was his step-by-step guide. But this is where a simple instruction manual becomes something so much more profound. You see, according to the text, this action wasn't just symbolic. This incredible quote tells us, "This sacrifice is the navel of the cosmos." In other words, they believed these rituals weren't just prayers to the universe, they were actions that actively participated in and maintained cosmic order. The sacrifice was literally the central point that kept the universe in balance. Okay, so how do you bridge that gap? How do you get from a physical act to this deep philosophical knowledge? Well, the Yajurveda itself actually gives us the roadmap, and it unfolds in 4 really distinct stages. The ancient sages had this amazing tree analogy to explain it. It all starts with the Samhita. That's the core collection of mantras, the literal words you chant. That's the trunk and the branches of the tree. Next up are the Brahmanas, which are these detailed commentaries explaining how and why you do the rituals. They're the flowers. Then you get the Aranyakas, or forest texts. These were for hermits to think about in seclusion, and they start to look at the rituals symbolically. This is where you see the shift from outside action to inside thought, the unripe fruit. And finally, you arrive at the Upanishads. This is the ripe fruit, the ultimate philosophical knowledge that starts asking questions about the very nature of reality itself. Now, just when you think you've got it all figured out, the story takes a turn. See, there isn't just one Yajurveda. The tradition actually split into 2 major schools. But here's the kicker. It wasn't over some deep philosophical disagreement. It was about something much more practical, organization. So you have the Krishna, or black Yajurveda, and the Shukla, or white Yajurveda. The black one is considered unarranged because the core mantras, the Samhita, and their explanations, the Brahmana, are all mixed in together. But the white Yajurveda is clear because the mantras are in one clean section and the explanations are in a totally separate one. It's basically just a difference in editing. So you'd think everyone would just switch to the cleaner, more organized white version, right? I mean, it just makes sense. But that's not what happened at all. And the reason why is wrapped up in this one simple but powerful rule. One must study one's own branch. What that meant was that your loyalty to your specific teacher-student lineage, the integrity of that oral tradition, was way more important than just having a text that was easier to read. The belief was that the real power was in the exact sound and sequence of the words, passed down perfectly. That was more important than anything. Your heritage was your path. And this incredible commitment to tradition in both of these schools ultimately led them to the exact same place, the philosophical summit of the Vedas, the Upanishads. And what a summit it is. I mean, both traditions gave us some of the most influential texts in all of Hindu philosophy. The Shukla school gave us the massive Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, one of the oldest and deepest philosophical works in the world. And from the Krishna schools, we get absolute gems like the Katha Upanishad, with its famous, moving dialogue between a young boy and the god of death, talking about life, the soul, and what comes next. These texts are known as Vedanta, which beautifully means both the end and the goal of the Vedas. It's right here that the focus does a complete 180. It shifts away from the external action of the ritual and turns inward. to this profound investigation of the self, the Atman, and how it relates to the ultimate reality of everything, Brahman. How do you even put that kind of search into words? Well, the Isha Upanishad gives us this stunning mystical image. The face of truth is covered by a golden vessel. It's saying that the ultimate truth is right there in front of us, but it's hidden, veiled by the brilliant, dazzling distraction of the material world. The entire journey of the Yajurveda, from action to knowledge, is really about learning how to see past that golden vessel to what's really underneath. So as we wrap up this incredible journey, let's pull all these threads together. What's the lasting legacy of this ancient text? If there's one single idea to take away from all this, it's this. The true genius of the Yajurveda is how it elevates what we do. It suggests that through focused, intentional action, or yajna, we aren't just passive observers in the universe. We are active participants in keeping the whole thing in balance. And that leaves us with a final, really thought-provoking question. For the ancient sages, yajna, their sacred action, was what brought balance to the cosmos. So for us, here, today, in our own complex, modern world, what is our yajna? What is that meaningful, intentional action we can perform to help create balance, both out in the world and inside ourselves? It's a heck of a question to think about. Thanks for joining me.